Good Monday afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson with 13 News Now. Here's your October 7th update at around 2 p.m. And with a 2 p.m. advisory, the Hurricane Center finds Milton to be even stronger. Right now, Milton is a Cat 5 hurricane. This is the highest category a tropical system can achieve. Right now, still in parts of the southern Gulf of Mexico, about to skate right past the Yucatan Peninsula and then head into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Right now, winds are now up to 175 miles per hour with gusts up to 190. The pressure has dropped to 911 millibars. Now, notice how Milton is forecast to weaken before heading towards that landfall along Florida's western coast. It's because it's going to enter an area of unfavorable conditions for tropical sustainment, meaning that it's going to enter an area of dry air plus high wind shear. Now, wind shear is a changing of direction with winds with height, and as that does enter that environment, those winds help to make the system break apart a little bit. So, still expecting a major hurricane landfall, but not as strong of a hurricane as Milton is now. Here's your look at those spaghetti models. There are two distinct trends in these models. One taking it closer to Tampa, the other taking it closer to South Florida near Fort Myers and south. Now, regardless of this, we are still expecting those major hurricane impacts with hurricane force winds and high storm surge around Florida's western coast, but its track, whether that's 100 miles to the north or 100 miles to the south, will determine which areas of Florida will see the most impactful weather from Milton. The Hurricane Center says they're following this track of Milton with the ensemble models more in agreement with that northern track than that southern track, but taking it back out to sea as we get into the end of the work week. So right now, potential storm surge maps show that places like Tampa and Fort Myers could see some of that storm surge up to about 10 to possibly even 12 feet. And some of these records could break what Helene already brought less than 2 weeks ago. Right now, we are seeing hurricane watches in effect for a lot of Florida's western coast, even spreading inland to places like Orlando, with tropical storm watches for places just south of Tallahassee, even getting closer to parts of extreme southern Florida. So here is that model comparison. We are taking the American and European models, the American model in yellow, the European in that red. The American model has this system a little bit slower than the European model, but both of these systems have its track trending more towards Tampa Bay than it is towards Fort Myers, again, still with that major hurricane strength. Tracking you through this system using our graph model. Now, this is only one model of many you can choose from, so I don't want you to just hone in on one model. I want you to explore all the different scenarios that could happen, but it does show this weakening trend with Milton as it gets closer to Florida's coast. Notice how that eye of Milton spreads out. Now, the problem with this weakening of Milton means that its impacts will actually spread out further. So that's why we do see those tropical storm watches in effect for places around the Big Bend of Florida, even though we're expecting more of a landfall as you get closer to places like I-75 near Tampa or anywhere between Tampa and Fort Myers. So as this system makes its impact in Florida, what can you expect? Well, we're talking hurricane force winds in some parts of the area, and others, especially in those areas more inland or more to the north and south of that center of low pressure of Milton, tropical storm force winds. Of course, that life-threatening storm surge is one of the main things we are watching, as again, this could break records from what Helene already said less than 2 weeks ago. The other issue is we are already seeing some rainfall in Florida ahead of this system, a part of another low pressure system that's bringing that wet weather. So the ground's already saturated in places like central and western Florida. Then you add on another potential 6 to maybe even up to 8 inches of rain with what we are seeing with Milton's potential impacts in Florida, which could lead to flash flooding in those areas as well. Of course, with any system with tropical weather, we are always expecting the impacts of possible spin-up tornadoes. Now, the thing about Milton is it became a Cat 5 hurricane this afternoon, or right around noon today, after being a Cat 2 very early this morning. So it underwent rapid intensification, and Milton is only the second Cat 5 hurricane we've had this season, the last one being Beryl. And remember, Beryl made landfall as a hurricane here in the U.S. very early on this year. So we are watching the tropics as we're not only watching Milton, we're also watching what was Kirk, Leslie, and now two areas of potential development. One which will be a tropical wave emerging off of the coast of Africa soon, and another one near Miami that will be getting closer towards Bermuda. So all I have to say is that while we are rounding out the peak of hurricane season lasts until November 30th, and we have a lot to track. Again, our biggest impacts we would see in the U.S. would come from Milton. So we are keeping an eye out for that here at 13 News Now. For all updates on the tropics, of course, always stay with 13 News Now here and online. Head to 13newsnow.com for the latest updates. For now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.